r/askreddit. What is the cheap wine tastes like expensive wine in an expensive bottle of your profession or hobby? If you say things like lye extract and animal tallow instead of sodium hydroxide and pig fat, people think your soap is more natural and fresher. I used to work at a little spa and the paraffin dips we offered were no better than a hot bath followed by rubbing down with a good moisturizer. The latter is actually cheaper and treats the whole body rather than just the hands and feet. Also, ear candles are bunk. We burned one in a clean glass candle holder and it produced the same residue that is often passed off as the earwax the candle supposedly removes. Use swimmer drops if you really want clean ears. As a lifeguard, I've noticed that whatever I say to people is much more well received if I say it in a British or Australian accent. I'll say the same exact sentence, but when they hear a foreign accent they are pleasantly surprised and focused on that instead of whatever I've just told them. Great results. Speaker wire, as long as it's decently made and thick enough for the length of run, there is absolutely no desirable acoustic difference between basic 12 AWG speaker wire and any of the $30 to $100 FT plus boutique variants. Generic no brand meds. If your doctor gives you a generic, take the freaking generic. I'll admit in some rare cases people won't support generic meds as well as brand named meds. But that has to do with the fact that people's bodies are a freaking nightmare and the very slight differences between two different meds that use the same molecule can sometimes have an impact. Sometimes the opposite is true as well. There's no need to get angry at your doctor for giving you a generic med before you've tried it. Some high-end makeup products are expensive just for the packaging. I have seen some chunky expensive highlighters, and amazing drugstore ones. I'm a doctor. Ethylene glycol is a chemical that is a component of antifreeze and is sometimes used, illegally, in cheap wines to make them taste better. It has similar depressant effects as alcohol, but can cause lots of metabolic abnormalities and lead to death. In the United States and most developed countries, the standard treatment is a medication called famepizole. However, in less developed countries or when resources are scarce, ethanol works just as well. Doctors routinely pour these patients glasses of vodka to treat their poisoning and it works pretty well. What computer do I need to start programming doing game development? One that you have the password to. Buying hardware is just an excuse to procrastinate. Start with the computer you already have. If you're a gamer, then it can already run the games you like. Don't spend any money until you've run into a brick wall on actual programming first. If wasting money is the fun part of programming, then your hobby isn't programming. Your hobby is wasting money. I've owned 2 computers in the last 12 years. I'm a professional and hobby programmer. Work laptops are bought by the company to their spec. At home I use those too. I swap out hard drives if they die. Big beefy computers don't make you a good programmer overnight any more than buying an overpriced muscle car makes you Jeff Gordon. Gordon probably didn't get his learner's permit on a race car, either. I am a park ranger who works at a national park. National parks have more prestige than national monuments, even though they are literally the same thing just with different paperwork, titles, and ways they are created. Many national parks, including Grand Canyon, Pinnacles, Olympic, and Joshua Tree, started as national monuments. The wildlife, geologic features, and history do not become more interesting once a national monument becomes a national park. It is similar with state parks. An area doesn't become more or less beautiful because it is managed by a state government or the federal one. These parks are often created because the land they exist on was either owned by the state or federal government. Ultimately, which protected areas you like more than others is ultimately subjective, but our general culture often doesn't give national monuments the same respect as national parks. Any cable that meets spec is good enough. At least one of the big 3 commercial AV manufacturers wires their showrooms and trade show booths with monoprice stuff. In a blind test, nobody would be able to tell the difference between lamp cord from Home Depot terminated with spade terminals from the electrical section and a $32,000 Opus MM speaker interconnect. Of course, you should always make sure your cables are spec'd properly and code compliant, but there's no need for fancy or showy stuff. Thanks for watching, mate. Make sure to smash that star button for more high quality content.